Welcome to In the Arena. I'm your host, Mindy McAlindon. Today, we're joined by three of Arkansas's most seasoned political consultants, Ken Yang, Rett-Davis, and Rett Hatcher. Combined, they've helped to shape campaigns, recruit candidates, and steer election victories across the state for more than 30 years. We're going to talk about how campaigns really get started, what makes a candidate successful, and hopefully hear a few funny war stories from the campaign. So welcome to In the Arena. Hey guys, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Oh, happy to have you. So I'm going to introduce each of you and just ask you to give a couple minutes of how you got into campaign consulting, kind of what drew you there. We'll just do a couple minutes and so we can dive into some of the meat. So you want to start with Ken Yang?
Yeah, sure. So I've been doing this for almost 20 years now. I graduated from Hendrix College. Thought I was going to take a year off before I went to law school. And a guy named Mark Martin, who was a state rep at the time, was running for Secretary of State and went to the Republican Party to try to get a job. I was just trying to get an internship, or, secretary or whatnot. They were looking for a campaign manager. And so I interviewed for it. I'll preface this, but I would have never hired me, by the way. Don't hire, yeah, don't hire. They said so they hired me in July of that year, and they said, "Hey, I need you to call the county chairman so that Mark can get us on the schedule." And I was like, "What's a county chairman?" So I didn't even know what any of those things were, but we worked hard. We elected the first Republican Secretary of State since Reconstruction. That's actually how I met Rett. Is working with Mark, because Rett was on the team too, and so then the rest is history. Kind of been doing politics ever since 2010.
That's awesome. And I just have to ask, is that Molly in the background?
That's not my dog.
Oh, it's not.
That's mine. My dog's going nuts. I'm trying to. I think she stopped. Sorry.
Sorry. No worries. Well, let's jump to Rett, since Ken kind of gave us a nice soft introduction. Rett Hatcher, welcome. Tell us about how you got involved in campaigning consulting.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My story is really my first introduction to campaigning was loading up in a very small white Chevy Cavalier with a friend of mine, and we drove up to Iowa in 2007, December of 2007, and spent that whole month on the ground with Mike Huckabee's presidential campaign, and had a blog at the time, and we got up there and knocked on doors and called, and I ended up speaking at one of the local elementary schools on the night of the caucus. They sent us out to all these different caucus events, and to be honest, I don't think I've had as thrilling an event happen since then. And I've been in some really cool stuff, but he ended up winning the caucus. And that was at a time where we didn't have the daily Twitter and internet feedback. And so he kind of got momentum and won, and just being there the night that he won that caucus was a high and a euphoria that's kind of driven me through, these last 16, 17 years. So yeah, that's how I got my start.
That's pretty exciting. And Iowa is a pretty tough place to start from a weather standpoint. I mean, it is, that's guerrilla warfare up there.
Yeah, very, very cold. I can't recall a time being that cold. I came home with one of the nastiest colds I've ever had. And, thankfully in Des Moines, most of the buildings are connected by these crosswalks. But yeah, snow on the ground, everything. It was a New Year's caucus, and so very cool.
Very cool. All right, and then last but certainly not least, Rett-Davis. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved.
So mine's a little bit different. I got started. I was actually a broadcast journalism major, so I got my start in TV and covered politics my first really kind of election out, and so really had to kind of keep the beat there. Of sort of all the smaller races happening around the area. So got plugged in that way. And I've had some college friends that were really plugged in. So I kind of tapped into them for interviews and information and things like that. So that's kind of how I got my start. in politics. Then I jumped on board with Congressman Womack when he won the first time and spent a couple years in D.C. on that side of things, came back to the television side, and then hopped on the 2014 campaign for then candidate Asa Hutchinson as his communications director. So that was sort of the kind of different path to doing this, but it was interesting to kind of be able to see that side of things before you start doing the consulting side.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's three very different paths for sure. Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions, and I'm just going to let y'all kind of jump in, and if nobody's answering, then I'm going to have to call on you. So that's the way it's going to go down. What I was thinking was, let's start with getting a candidate. Have you ever had to convince someone who maybe they didn't think they were a politician that they would be a great candidate and they should run for office, and then did you ever regret it?
I'll answer that real quick.
Yeah.
So I started working in legislative races in 2008 when Democrats still controlled things here in Arkansas. And so there was a lot more proactive recruiting of candidates on our side. And, we would call people on the phone. They would, get a random call. Maybe they were on the city council or already a justice of the peace, maybe not. And, you're trying to talk someone into, giving up, if they win, years of their life in this public service. And, it is, it's not something we do as much now because, there's a lot of people that want to run on our side. But it's a lot to talk somebody into something with no guarantee of success. And you feel a lot of pressure, when you do that, for sure.
We'll say, what's funny? I think the people that you have to convince the most to run are probably the people that need to run the most. The ones that want that position, want to run the most, or, no offense, not all of them, but are probably the ones that probably don't need to be running. The ones that don't want to run, that think, my retort, me long enough, all of y'all know me long enough that I'm very blunt. And people say, "Oh, I don't think I'm qualified. I don't think I can run." Have you seen the people that serve in Little Rock?
Hey,
have you seen the people that serve in the United States Congress in DC? They're not all bad, but there are some of them you kind of scratch your head. You're like, well, if they can go serve, you can go serve. And so those are the people that are worried about family, their business, their employees. They have a genuine heart for service already. So that's what we need in Little Rock. And, typically those are the best people that for me, trying to convince those people to run are the best.
Yeah. I mean, I think they both make really good points, and Rhett's been doing this for a long time. But I think the really hard part is to convince someone to put themselves out there, right, for everyone to sort of judge them, right, on sort of the campaign. Do they like you? Do they not like you? And now in 2025, I mean, politics has always been, divisive, but, my goodness, now it's, you put your name out there, you declare a position and everything that comes with it. And and I feel like we live in a day and age now where the sort of layperson just connects whatever party you're with everything that party stands for or offers, right? Instead of there's different, factions and philosophies and platforms and things like that. So I think convincing someone that they can do real good work, right? They can do things for, you can mention heart, heart for service. That's convincing them they can do really, really good things for their community in a place like Little Rock, in the legislature. But man, moving past the fact that you've got, a few thousand folks, picking you or someone else, I mean, that's tough for a lot of folks to kind of wrap their brain around. It's tough.
Yeah, it is. And I will say the first time that I ran, it was David Ray, and I think I've told all of you this, told me, people can like you and still not vote for you. And I was like, wait, what? That's a thing? So it is. It feels very judging for sure. Okay, so when a brand new candidate comes to you, what's the first thing that you tell them they need to do? And then as a follow-up to that, what's the biggest mistake that you see first-time candidates make? Answer either or both.
I'll take the low-hanging fruit first. I think the mistake a lot of first-time candidates make, or spending way too much money on things that do not matter immediately. Right. I mean, I see it time and time again, like just, and they're, obviously most want your advice and will take it and that sort of thing. But it's, one, I think it's the idea in some ways that maybe fundraising is easier in their mind than they realize, right? And so they're just spending a lot of money and it becomes a little more difficult to raise that money. And then you've got, these shirts and stickers and everything early on, right? So really that first part of your campaign, you're doing everything you can to just, get the sort of startup costs, if you will, the websites and things, but then it's just put money in the bank. But I see that mistake a lot of just spending a lot of unnecessary money on unnecessary things early on.
Yeah, I was actually just talking to someone about this morning, and yes, I told them as JR mentioned, the T-shirts, the stickers, the billboards. My gosh, we're in August. There's certain candidates already buying yard signs, and it's. I said all that serves is to make you, as the candidate, feel good. You feel all warm and fuzzy. You see your name on things. People tell you, "Oh, I love your billboard." Da, 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 da. And that's all it serves. It serves as making you feel good, but it does nothing to move the needle. And the first thing I tell folks, even if they don't hire my firm, I say, hire a consultant. If you don't hire me, go hire JR and John. If you don't hire me, go hire Rett. So on and so forth. There's a reason why out of 135 legislators, about 120 of them all have one of us behind them. And that's not by mistake or by happen chance. It's hard when you're a candidate, you already need a consultant. And I tell people, just think when you win, now you're on not only state rep, but you're state rep, and now you're also a candidate. So now you're doing two things. And so that's all my first advice for candidates.
That's great.
Yeah, I think those are really good points. Just convincing the candidate that time is a finite resource and they don't have as much of it as they think they do. And they need to be very efficient with their time, whether that's raising money or knocking doors or other forms of voter contact. Like, you still have real life. You have family, you have a business, you have a job. And so you've really got to be efficient with your time and focus on the things that really matter. What I like to see in a candidate is that, they have an understanding of, they're a racehorse with blinders on, and they need to be focused on running around the track. And the jockey, which is kind of the consultant, they're focused on the strategy of when to move and when to do this, when to do that. But when you're the candidate, you really are that racehorse. You have one job, as fast as you can down that track, and you have to let other people think for you beyond that. And so just convincing candidates that, that's the key.
So do y'all think that a good candidate is not necessarily a good legislator? Like, do you see a disconnect, or do you feel like they're kind of connected?
I'd say, I think it can be both, but for the most part, if you have a candidate who, Rett brings up a good point. It's not just, we talk about fundraising because, you can have, a Cadillac or an El Camino, and if there's no gas in the tank when it's time to go, they're the same car, right? And so you can have a great candidate, but they got to be able to raise money. But equally as important, it's, you got to be able to put in the work. And so the two hardest things to do as a candidate is raise money and say you're going to spend, 4 hours a day knocking doors. And it's a lot of work, and it's not fun, but it's worthwhile. And I think if you have a candidate who's willing to make the calls and fundraise and also knock doors, like that candidate's that's a great candidate, one. And I think they're going to be successful, more times than not. Now, how that translates to the legislature, that's hard. You would think if it's a good candidate and they're working hard, they're going to work hard as a legislator. But yeah, I think you see it both ways as well. So.
Yeah, governing and, we often hear it in politics, right? Campaigning and governing are two totally different things. There are a lot of people that are really good at buzzwords, really good at fundraising, really good at schmoozing folks, and they go to Little Rock and they don't do anything. They're not influential. They have no political capital. But to JR's point, it can be both. You can be a great candidate. You can be great at the Capitol. Because a lot of the folks, trust me, you think I remember getting into politics and my first job in state government, man, I thought I was going to change how state government worked. And so did Mark Martin. We thought we were going to change state government. And boy, yeah, that didn't happen because it is so hard. There's so many things. I think JR and Rhett would agree that even now, that as long as we've been doing it for so long, there's something new we learn every session. Something that happens that you're like, oh man, this, and so it's tough. And it can be both. It can be one or the other. It just depends on. I said once again, it goes back to the candidate. Is the candidate willing to listen? Right? Because I know all of our clients call, hey, Rhett, do you think I should do this? Or JR, do you think I should do this? And I think we all three of us, we give good advice. And if they're willing to listen, I think the sky's the limit.
Well, let me ask you this, and this is just kind of a funny one. Is there anything like funny that you can think of that happened on the campaign trail while you're working a campaign, something that just kind of encapsulates, yes, this is Arkansas, like this could only happen in Arkansas? Any funny stories? Okay, we can move on. All right, nothing funny. I have some, but
mine's probably not like Arkansas. I think, maybe the funny stories that I'm thinking of, probably not appropriate for this podcast for like Arkansas stuff.
It's basically like, which ones can you actually share? That's
which ones can you share? But one that's less Arkansas is, I worked for Speaker Gingrich, and so when he was in the state that I was in charge of, I was always in the green room with him. And these people, like, they're running 20 plus hours a day running for president, and he would fall asleep in the green room. And we were always hopeful Callista was with him, because sometimes she wasn't, because she would wake him up. But if she wasn't there, we'd look at each other like, it's your turn to wake up the speaker. No, no one wanted to wake up Speaker Gingrich. And so I always thought that was funny. I never had to wake him up, so it's all good.
That's good. That's probably good. That's why you still had a job.
Yeah.
All right. So how about this? Have you ever had a candidate who has kind of gone off script? Like you've said, you've got an interview or you've got a speech you're making. These are the things you need to hit. And they have completely gone off on a totally different path. Present company excluded, JR. Gone off in a totally different path. And you've kind of had to do the damage control after the fact.
I'll say just quickly, for the most part, we've been blessed to have really good candidates that are, like I said, coachable, and they teach us things every cycle, and hopefully we can share some stuff as well. But I had one. The biggest thing is jumping the gun and filling out a bunch of surveys, which just end up always that not checking with your consultants first on some, and some of them they're worded a little bit strange. That's one. I'll also mention kind of a funny story, but also off script, if you will. We have had a candidate where basically they were out of the country the last month of the campaign, and that was a interesting campaign at the very end there. So
wow.
It wasn't successful, but but yeah, that was if you say off script, that was something kind of probably out of their hands. But I've never been part of a campaign where the candidate was actually not there for the final month. So yeah, very odd.
That's amazing. Well, if someone is thinking about running for office, you talked a little bit about making sure people have time, right? Making sure that they kind of have a heart for service. Is there anything else than this specific political climate that you think they should be thinking about or be aware of? Because it's certainly gotten different.
Well, I think number one, you have to do that time assessment. We work with a lot of legislative candidates. I've told some people, like, where you're at in life, you would be a great candidate. You would likely win the election, but, do you want to spend time away from your kids while they're at home? You could be coaching their basketball teams. Instead, you're going to be down here in Little Rock. That's not really, it's not something I would want. And I think, so just being honest with candidates that, what you're about to sign up for is a real commitment. I think the other thing is, we kind of have a rule that, it's an unofficial rule, but, you need to be able to put down a certain number of people that you're going to be able to call and ask for money. And if you can't come up with 250, 300, 400 names of people that potentially may give you money, then, you need to be more about growing your network and less about, maybe running for office. A lot of people want to do it. And, again, in a perfect world, we'd be in a system where maybe that didn't matter. But, the system we have is the best system that's ever been, but you still have to have, an ability to either fund yourself or get that money. And that's a sign of support, and so it's, it's just very important. So I tell candidates, you got to have the time and you got to be able to come up with the money. And if not, there's, it's not to say you can't win, but it's just not likely.
Much bigger hill to climb.
Yeah, I'll say, politics today is obviously different than when it was in the 2010s or in the 2000s. It's a lot more aggressive. It's a lot more personal. I ran for statewide office in 2014 and I was only 23 years old, and I made mistakes in that campaign. And if I think back to the mistakes I made in that campaign to present day today, I think the mistakes back then, you fast forward them today, they may not be mistakes today in today's political climate, right? And so I tell folks all the time, especially I think all three of us, when we sit down with folks, we try to understand the candidates. Like, we know the candidate's deepest, darkest secrets. I tell people all the time, we have to know, not because we're going to go out and tell all these folks, but so that we're prepared in case it comes up and something happens. And I tell folks, if you do have something, I don't know, it could be a DWI, it could be whatever it may be, something bad that in today's world is not good. Are you ready to relive that? Is your family ready to relive that? Because trust me, I say, look at it, both of them, we're really good. And I think we all have reputations that precedes ourselves. And, I tell folks, because if you're on the opposite side of me, I'm going to make you relive it. And you gotta decide whether you're ready for that, because the judgment's not me. It's the people that are going to judge you, whether they're ready to forgive you for whatever past transgressions you may have. And some people aren't ready for it. Some people think that they're ready for it. And then, boy, when that first negative mailer comes out, I mean, they just lose it. So.
Makes sense. So what kind of races do you like, are your favorite to run? Do you like the city council, the state legislature? Like, do any of you have a favorite that if you could pick a race to run, I really want, or to be a consultant for, I'd really like to be like a mayor candidate or anything like that?
I think a good state house legislative race is so good because you kind of it's small enough that the candidate's hard work and all that, like door-to-door strategy, really matters. And then it's big enough that, you've got to be able to message, widely. You obviously a state senate race is a much larger thing. And so the door-to-door doesn't matter as much. A city council race, the door-to-door is basically everything. And so that state house race, a good state house race is a lot of fun.
Yeah, we've done everything from, city council races to, mayoral races to statewide races, congressional races. I would say my favorite race is just a competitive race, right? I mean, I know you want to go out there but when it forces you to really think through strategy and come up with ideas outside the box, like that's fun. I enjoy it. And if you've got a good team and you've got a candidate who's willing to sort of collaborate with you, I mean, to me, that's the fun stuff. I mean, obviously, losing's terrible, and that's no fun because one, you get to know these candidates really, really well throughout the many months you're together, and you want the best for them. And then, of course, being a competitor, you want to win. So it's not all bad when you can win by 20, but the competitive races, I think, just kind of get your juice flowing a little bit more.
I agree with all that, and especially that candidate that raises a lot of money, and I don't have to be asking, hey, do we got enough money for this or that? You just, not to say we, spend, crazily, but like, you just don't have to worry about, hey, gosh, do we have enough money for that last mailer? You got enough money, you can do everything you want. And then you just, the opposition, to JR's point, it's just fun. And it's fun. It's fun being competitive, and it's fun having the high ground. And when you're uppercutting and punching the opposition and they can't do anything about it, I don't know, call us crazy, call me crazy. I take a lot of joy in that.
That's pretty awesome. Well, I do. It's interesting just to hear y'all kind of talk about the competitive, because being a candidate on the other side, I'm like, I don't want a competitive race. I just want to walk in. It's so much easier. But I will say, in all honesty, and even when I was a county chairman, I would say this: competitive races are the best, right? Because it makes you a better candidate, and I think it makes you a better legislator when you get there, right? Because you fought for it, you appreciate it more, and I think you are sharpened. So even though my preference would be none, I think it is a good thing.
I think you're right. I mean, obviously, not having a opposition at all, that's terrific. But it is something I think that does make you a better candidate. It makes you a better consultant. Just makes you all around better when you're having to actually really kind of think through each move, right? But there's sort of that fun part about it. So,
well, and I'll say this, like having that other candidate, it makes us better. But, we often talk about like, oh, who did so-and-so hire, right? And so if I know the candidate I'm helping and then they have opposition, they hired Rett or they hired John and JR, like I know I'm in for a different type of game, right? And Rett and JR make me better as a consultant. We all have our little idiosyncrasies there, Ken's probably going to do this, Rett's probably going to do this, JR's probably going to do this. But like we know that, we're playing in the major leagues now versus if I have a candidate and who do they hire? Oh, nobody, or somebody that's not really a consultant. Then you're kind of like, okay, well, I don't have to worry too much about that part of it. But, when they hire, I think one of the main consultants here in Arkansas, it changes the tune of your campaign.
So that's fascinating, because I hadn't really thought about it before, but there really are just 4 or 5 main firms in Arkansas, or at least from the legislative standpoint. And it's a rematch. Every election season, it's a rematch among the 4 of you. Like, that is so funny because, we look at it from a candidate standpoint and, there's new candidate here, new candidate here. But in reality, most of the candidates are hiring consultants. And it's going to be from one of y'all's 3 firms or one of the other 2, right? And so it's really y'all going head to head that just completely reframes how I think about elections. That's
I think JR knows this. John and JR and I have never gone head to head in a race before, which is absolutely insane.
I didn't know that.
That's unbelievable.
It's absolutely insane. Yeah.
But you compete against Rett all the time?
I actually don't even. I mean, I know we've got. It is funny. You have I do pay attention to who, the opposition hires and works with. I mean, I think to Ken's point, I think it's just helpful to know those things. But it does feel like, especially in the last few cycles, there's been so many races. I try to do. To me, it's focusing on your candidate and getting that message right. Like, defining your candidate before they're defined. Sorry, my daughter has some thoughts on that as well, but
she's agreeing with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think just, focusing on them, making sure what their strengths are, avoiding their weaknesses, defining them before they're defined by the opposition, and getting out there and really kind of like getting your message across before it can be manipulated. Right. Like, so to me, it's just, that's what I enjoy about working with even a new candidate is, okay, who are you? What's your background? What do you do? What's your passion for doing this? Why are you running in the first place? And then let's put something together. And but while it's important to kind of know all that, and it is funny that you said rematch, I've never thought of it that way, but it is a rematch. Every cycle. But I think focusing on the candidate themselves and figure out there's not a one size fits all. There's a good strategy that I think can fit most candidates, but every candidate's different. And so I think you just have to kind of get to know them and craft what that is. So.
Well, I have to tell folks, you talk about rematch, like, not to blow smoke up your skirt, JR, but like I tell folks all the time, JR is the best communicator, I think, in our business. I think he can convey
Just keep
things.
rolling that, Mindy. If you just want to play that
Yeah,
part of it.
yeah. We're just gonna put that on the loop.
I think we are all good. He's gonna clip that and play it to
You wonder what I have on Ken.
Yeah, when we
Yeah.
interview clients, even Ken Yang says I'm the best. And so like we're all good, but like he comes from a different world. He talked about broadcast journalism. He's just one of the best communicators. And I remember rematch. I'll never forget. If ever, like I said, I have good memory. And I did Tony Furman's race. He was running against someone that everyone supported. I remember the next day, I think Rett and JR and John were on a radio station, and no one thought Tony was going to win. I don't think a single soul on the planet thought Tony was going to win. And JR went on the radio that next morning, and he was like, wasn't expecting that. Well, game respects game. And I remember you said those words exactly. And
was that like 6 a.m? Because I don't remember what I said at like 6.
Yeah. Well, and so those are the races that are fun, but also it's competitive. We're all friends, but it's friendly competitions. There's enough fish in the sea for all of us. Heck, I think I've talked to both of these guys in the last few weeks about, hey, do you mind? I can't take this person. Will you take this person? So on and so forth, right? So it's fun. Obviously, we all want to win. And some of us work better with others than so.
Nice. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up a little bit here because we were starting to get a little long. But Rett, I'm going to start with you. Hold on. I'm going to pause for a second because my dog found something. Hi. Come here. Come here. Thank you. So my 14-year-old's been up here apparently. Anyways, sorry about that. Coming back. So Rett, I'm going to start with you. Let's kind of wrap up a little bit, but I just want to ask you, as you look towards, so just over a year from now, we're going to be in our elections, right? We're going to be finishing up the general election, getting set for the next session. And so there's a lot of competitive races. We've got statewide races, the constitutional races, as well as the legislative and local races. Is there anything that you hope happens in the next year? Is there something, if you could change it, you'd like to change it and how politics works, or just something you'd like to see happen in the next year? It's a broad question. You can go any direction you want with it.
Yeah. Again, I'm kind of a libertarian, a little bit Citizens United oriented. So I'm for, this is America. It's a capitalist country. I'm for, if you have money, that's part of your speech and you ought to be able to use that. Obviously, if you're a candidate, have money, you can put in as much money as you want. But, I think we ought to have an ability to, give more than what the limits are. And so I always like when those limits go up because, again, I think, you work hard for that ability. And that's one way that you get to have speech is by how much money you're able to give. So that may be a little consultant speak, but that's what I feel.
I think you have candidates that would agree with that. And so just to kind of illuminate that a little bit, we have a $3,300 limit that
35, Mindy.
Excuse me, it went up. I'm sorry, I should know my consultant needs to tell me these things. We have a $3,500 limit of what can be given to a candidate from a PAC or from an individual, and businesses are not allowed to give to candidates. And so you're saying you'd like to see that $3,500 go up or go away because other states have no limit, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's a good one. Ken Yang, you want to?
I'll just say, there's going to be about 20%, if not more, turnover in the House. We have a huge opportunity to change the makeup of the House in regards to conservative legislators. So, I look really forward to kind of electing a lot of good conservative Republicans into the state House, and changing that makeup, extending our majority in the House, possibly extending our majority in the Senate too. We got some good candidates challenging some Democrats in certain races, and then I'll add some consultant speak. We got to do something about these stupid judicial rules on fundraising and campaigning and stuff like that. Like this 180 days out, people should be able to give when they want to give, who they want to give to, and not just 180 days out and all that stuff. We got to change some of the judicial laws come next session.
Okay. Jerry, you got anything? Anything you'd like to see
these
coming
guys
up?
covered good stuff. I think just what I'm looking forward to is just, I think nationally, just the overall messaging from both sides. I think this is going to be another clear-cut decision for the American people. So it's not just Arkansas, but what we're going to see in the midterms. I think Democrats still can't get out of their own way, and I think Republicans are choosing sort of the right topics, right? They're focused on the right things, and I think we continue to see from the previous election to the midterms, Democrats continue to focus on the wrong things. And will that shift? Will they do something different? Will there be enough time? So I'm just kind of curious to watch that play out nationally, and how things break. So
yeah. Did you see that President Trump floated the idea of having a midterm convention?
I did not, but hey,
yeah,
let's do
floated that yesterday. I know, crazy. Okay, so before I let you go, I do want to give each of you the opportunity to just kind of say who you are one more time, and if you want a website or your firm name or anything you'd like to plug, let's do that. JR, I'll start with you.
Yeah, just Gilmore Davis Strategy Group, just gilmorestrategy.com. If you're looking to run for office or just want some advice and are willing to take it.
Yeah. Ken Yang.
My American Dream Strategies. You can find me on Twitter or Facebook. Real easy. And if you're looking the same thing, you're looking for advice and thinking about running, I cannot stress enough: hire Rhett, hire John and JR, hire myself, hire someone. You'll have a way better chance of winning if you hire one of us.
All right, Rett Hatcher.
Yeah, capital consulting firm, ccfirm.com. And I do think consultants are important because, we provide a lot of value. Running for office is kind of it's a nerve-wracking black box type experience. And so any one of these guys are going to be able to help you navigate that and give you, sound advice. And there's a lot to just making the trains run on time. If nothing else, just having somebody to make sure your mailers get done and your YouTube goes up. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that that's backhand easy for us, but difficult for someone to learn.
Yeah, excellent, gentlemen. Thank you so much for taking time and joining me together. I just thought this would be fun to hear from all of you kind of at the same time. So I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to connecting with you all soon.
Thanks for having us, Mindy.
Thanks, Mindy.
My pleasure. Yeah, take care. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the conversation with these three consultants. As I said, they are just three of the most seasoned political consultants that we have in Arkansas. Ken Yang, J.R. Davis, Rett Hatcher, so many years and years of experience at all levels of race. And as you can tell, they've got some really wise ideas of what to do if you're a new candidate who's thinking about running, a candidate who's already running and would like help. They are the guys who can help you. So if you have any questions, reach out to them, and I look forward to seeing you next week in the arena.